All right, before I go to the next one, the myths of nature. Hoyt just said, you saw it on TV or?
You know, you pass stuff around on the internet. I'll send it to you also.
Well, I'm gonna follow up on that because that was part of the research for this thing. In fact, it's in there, isn't it, under black king snake? Look under black king snake, Hoyt.
Timber rattlesnake.
Yeah.
Have been known to kill and consume. Yes, sir.
The black king snake has got yellow between black scales. That's the only way you can distinguish. The scales are a little more glossy. Now, glossy means when it's in the sun, it shines. It's not drab. That one was drab and rough, keeled. Their scales are keeled on the black rat snake. So the black king snake, I've seen them in here too. They're immune to the Viperidae venom, the venomous snake's venom. I'll tell you another characteristic of the king snakes. In my class years ago, I had two, about a 3.5 footer and about an 18-incher in the same cage. I'd had them for, snakes won't eat in captivity usually. So I usually keep them a week and turn them loose in a state park, something like that. They kind of like us. When they get stressed, they just can't function. You know, they really get stressed. And when they're around noise, they don't have ears, but they pick up vibrations quickly in the ground. And when you're in a classroom with kids stomping and knocking around, they just really get nervous. But these two, first-hand illustration, after about 4 or 5 days, I came in one morning. You know, it had a wire cage for ventilation, wire top to it. You know, it was about 2 feet by 4 feet, all glass, so the kids could see them crawling around rocks, whatever. And about the 5th morning, there was still a large one, but there was no more smaller one.
Oh.
So, yes, they're cannibalistic, and they do eat other snakes. That's fairly typical for the king snake, more so than the rat snake. Now, the one you just saw, they'll climb trees. They'll eat bird eggs, young birds, young squirrels, if it's a big one. I've seen those things in here, and don't anybody get scared here, but I've seen those things in here about as long as I am. You know, 6-footers are not terribly uncommon in southeast Tennessee. Now, the racer, if you go down another one, the eastern racer, it's a different genus, but still black snake. Colubra constrictor, and that species name belies their habit. They constrict their prey animals, where it's mice, a rat, or whatever. And then they always consume, in case you wanted to know, head first. And contrary to what you may have heard, the vipers, the rattler and the timber and the northern copperhead, or any of these black snakes that kill by constriction, they won't ever eat anything they hadn't killed themselves. Won't do it. And they're all cold-blooded, so they're about to go dormant as well here in another couple of weeks or 3 weeks or so. Now, the 4th one's that hognose snake I mentioned. And again, there's two color varieties of those things, but you may see any of those 4. The most common of those 4 by far is the black rat snake, the one we just saw back there. And I think in that little brief description it says, that one kind of did it on that embankment. If you'd see one in this road right here and it detected danger, here's you walking, or here's your golf cart, their first mechanism is just freeze. Kind of like a baby deer, just freeze. Let's check this out type. Now, snakes aren't capable of conceptual thought, obviously, but they just freeze. And until you, like when that stick touched it, you saw what it did. But up till then, it was just going to freeze and hope I went away. And that's fairly typical of that species. Anything else on that one? Okay, let's get to the one. Hoyt, did I answer your question there?
I'm going to send you that too.
Yeah?
It's fascinating how to put it. You know.
Well, at the bottom of some of these handouts, you notice it says I can be reached, my email address. If you've got questions or like to email a photo, I'd love to see them. This one is entitled The Myths of Nature. This is just a few. Did everybody get one? Lenny had just asked about the black fox, the notorious black fox we had so much fun with a couple of years ago, or at least I did. Frank Cahoon saw it again. He's the one who sent me all the great original photos. And again, you got to go back a year and a half on the Nature Journal. You can see some great photos of him. He saw him again about a month ago. Now it may be a different one, but the melanistic gene in foxes, once it gets established in the family tree, it's a dominant gene. See, mutations in nature usually get eliminated. For example, a white squirrel is just not going to make it very far. But in this case, evidently, there's still a few of the progeny roaming the hills in here. So if you see one of those, let me know. Lenny saw it a few months ago, and very rare.
They're abundant in Brevard, North Carolina. The white, oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, the white squirrel. Sure,
the what?
The white squirrel?
Yeah.
They live in Brevard, North Carolina?
Exactly. The only place I've ever seen those things survive is in a controlled environment. And I'll tell you where there's some more is that I used to work at Heatherhurst Golf Course, Fairfield Glade, between semesters, so I could play a little golf. And there was a population of them out there. But see, there's no hunting allowed and all that out there. Yeah. Yeah. But usually hawks get them, predators. See, they can see them so easily. That's why usually mutations get eliminated from the mainstream. If a mutation further advances its adaptation potential, it'll survive and it'll become more dominant as the generations go on. But white squirrels usually don't make it very far.
Is that a mutation or recessive gene though?
What's that, ma'am?
You thought a white squirrel is mutation. Is that mutation or because of...
Well, that's an albinism trait.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, just like in this black fox, it's the melanistic gene got in that family tree somehow. Probably never know exactly how, but. Okay, let's see here, what we got here. Boy, I had this question several times back in spring. Tom and Renee. Put a baby bird back in the nest, the parents will abandon the chick. True or false?
True.
False.
False. I've heard that all my life too. Now birds, I know birds, a lot of you get into birds and I do too. There's a lot of myths about birds. And this could go off in a lot of different directions, this discussion can, but birds, if you looked at the anatomy of a bird, there's a reason, there's a phrase called, well, that guy's a bird brain. They do not have, part of their brain, there is no cerebrum. There's no center of conceptual thought. Birds are almost totally instinctive. I mean, it's in there, it's programmed in there. They don't think, well, it's getting cooler, I'm getting out of here, man. I'll see you next spring. It's nothing like that. Or a lot of people think, and is this the next one? Number 5. Touch on number 5 quickly. Birds sing because they're happy. Yeah, in the springtime, the mockingbirds are still doing their thing. I still hear them down at the office and whatever. I love the mockingbirds, our state bird. But birds sing most of what you hear is the male. 98% of what you hear is the male in the spring. And they're really wanting to be noticed. Some of it's territorial, warning off other males. Some of it's just saying, honey, I'm here. It's time to get some eggs ready, you know. That's what nearly all of it is. It's very much instinctive. Nest building is totally instinctive. They cannot think and say, well, Joe, come on, let's help me build a nest. We got to have some kids. It's nothing like that. It's totally driven by instinct. Now, let me get a little closer to home. Remember the barn swallows under the lodge entrance? I haven't seen them in about several days now. You know where they're headed? Now, this is a little 4.5 inch bird. You know where they're headed? They're headed to Brazil. 10,000 miles. 20,000 miles round trip. And the very same species, the very same specimens, if they survive the 20,000 miles, will be back in March or April.
Is that what hummingbirds go to, or they go?
Hummingbirds go
Brazil or South America?
South America, Latin America. Now these robins don't go that far. If you noticed in your yard lately, the robins are already starting to group up again. Now if you remember back in February when they first got here, they were in groups. I mean, yards may have 30 or 40 in them. That means they just got here from the Gulf Coast, Florida, Mexico. They don't fly near as far as some species, but they're the first ones back usually every spring. You know, they call robins the harbinger of spring, that's why. But they're already grouping up, they're getting ready to go too. So one day you'll look out and they'll be gone. But do they sing because they're happy? No, that's just what their kind do. They're trying to attract a mate, or they're trying, in the case of mockingbirds, a lot of that is stay out of my territory. You're trespassing. But,
Oh, excuse me.
yes,
Can
go
you
ahead.
put baby squirrel back in the nest?
Yeah, it's worth a try, sure. Yeah.
We wind up raising them because we don't know if they can go back.
Yeah. Birds' sense of smell, I don't know if that's on here or not. Well, birds are stupid. Birds have one of the smallest brains of all the vertebrate species. It's incredibly tiny. It's really just an enlargement of the brain stem. It's just really, really small. But I don't know if they're stupid or not, because like turkey vultures have an incredible sense of smell. But most of these songbirds we love so much coming to our yards, they're not really they don't really have a great sense of smell. Now again, it's adapted to their way of life. For example, these hawks, sharp-shinned, Cooper's hawk, broadwing, red-tail, very much like a human with 7 or 8 power binoculars. I mean, think about it, sitting on top of a dead tree, and you can see a white-footed mouse that's about that big going through the grass. You know, we're not capable of that, but they are. So it all depends on their way of life, you see. Some see better than others, some smell better than others, and that kind of thing. Now, birds adapt just like a lot of the warm-blooded animals. I wouldn't say they're incredibly smart, but they adapt. So I would say birds are stupid. I'd say that was false. I wouldn't put them in the stupid category. Now, anatomically, they're challenged. They're challenged as far as having a brain like yours is, what, 1,500 cubic centimeters? The whole cortex of birds just don't have different compartments of the brain, you know, they've got the coordination and balance. And tell you another couple things about the birds. Next time you see one, think about this. Their digestive system is incredibly fast. They will excrete waste sometimes within just 2 or 3 minutes after they eat. Their bones are hollow, just like a straw. Just like a straw. The texture of their bones is, it's a matrix. It's a matrix, more like a web, intricate design more than yours. Why do you think that would be?
So they can fly.
Reduce their weight so they can expend less energy, get one place to another. It's all part of their way of life. Birds are all, other than the layers of feathers, which are waterproof, birds rarely get cold. You know, we feel sorry for them a lot when snow's on the ground. That's usually not an issue. Finding food is the issue. If they've got a few sunflower seeds to eat that's got some energy potential, they're going to be just fine. That's the big thing, is when the snow's on the ground, their food supply diminishes. So if you feed birds, don't quit when it gets cold. That's when they need it the worst. When the ground's frozen. Okay, the toad's number 2. Okay, the moss. For you purist hikers, moss only grows on the north side of trees. What about that one?
No, only 50-50 true or false.
All right, the moss is one of the non-vascular plants. It grows here in these woods. Yes, it is. It don't like sunshine. You know, its tissue dries out in the sun, as all of you know. It does grow on the north side of the tree, but in a forest like this, it'll grow on the east and west and south side too. Now, it may help you a little if you're hiking and lost, but I wouldn't rely on it totally. Because if you're in an area like that, you know, chances are it's going to be on every side of the tree. But there may be more on the north side, especially in the fall and spring, because you get less sun angle there.